He thought leaving her was protecting her. But 3 years later, his abandoned mansion reveals a secret that shatters everything. She's back, with 2 little boys he never knew existed, and the man he never expected to see is waiting. What happens next will change their lives forever. Welcome back to Heartwoven Tales. I'm your storyteller, Selena. Tell me, where are you listening from today? I really want to know. Because this story will take you on an emotional journey from the very first second. So please, watch till the end. The last chapter will touch your heart in a way you won't forget. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoy deep, emotional stories. Now let's dive in. The mansion loomed like a shadow of David Miller's past, its cracked windows and overgrown garden, a quiet testament to the empire he had once ruled. The wind whispered through broken gates, carrying the faint echo of memories he had tried to bury, yet the security monitors screamed otherwise. Red alerts flashed across the screen, cutting through the darkness like knives. David's fingers trembled as he reached for the mouse, anticipating the intrusion of thieves or rival gangs, but nothing could have prepared him for what he saw. There she was, Jasmine. After 3 long, torturous years of absence, she appeared on the screen, a vision of both vulnerability and strength. She clutched 2 small twin boys, their matching faces tiny mirrors of his own. The resemblance was so stark, so piercing, that David staggered back in disbelief. His breath caught, his heart hammered with the realization that these were not just children. These were his children. Every instinct in him screamed. Yet fear mingled with a strange, overwhelming hope he hadn't allowed himself in years. She moved cautiously, her steps measured, eyes darting toward the gates as if expecting danger to materialize from the shadows. The boys nestled against her chest, soft whimpers breaking the tense silence, their innocence at odds with the violent world David had left behind. A part of him wanted to reach through the screen, to grab them all and pull them into his arms, but another part, the part trained to survive in a world of blood and betrayal, froze in sharp focus. The camera flickered as she approached the front gate, the night air casting her silhouette in sharp relief. David zoomed in, trying to discern every expression, the slight tremble of her hands, the protective curve of her arms around the twins. The way her lips moved in quiet words he couldn't hear. Each detail struck him like a thunderclap. He had left her to protect her, thinking his absence would shield her from the blood-stained chaos of his life. And now, seeing her return to this very mansion, carrying his sons, a cocktail of guilt and disbelief surged through him. Then, a new movement caught his eye. A black SUV emerged slowly from the tree line, creeping like a predator trailing its prey. The vehicle moved with terrifying purpose, its tinted windows hiding whoever sat inside. David's pulse spiked. Whoever was following her was patient, professional, and dangerous. His fingers hovered over the alarm system, debating whether to confront the intruder directly or risk revealing himself. But hesitation wasn't an option. He had spent years surviving chaos. An instinct screamed that time had already run out. The mansion's corridors stretched behind him, silent but alive with memories he couldn't escape. Footsteps he hadn't heard in years seemed to echo off the marble floors in his mind. Every creak of the old mansion whispered a warning. David felt his chest tighten as he imagined Jasmine walking closer to the mansion, unaware of the threat closing in. Each heartbeat seemed louder than the last, punctuating the dread that had wrapped around his chest like a vice. Suddenly, the camera feed flickered violently, the screen cracking with static as the SUV halted momentarily. Jasmine paused too, glancing back at the approaching danger, unaware that he was watching every move, praying silently that nothing would happen. He could almost hear her heartbeat from the screen, every nervous breath, every whispered word to the twins a dagger to his conscience. David leaned closer, analyzing the perimeter cameras for any other movements. The mansion had been empty for years. He had left it secured, but the sudden surge of life within its walls now made it feel like a trap. Tiny footprints appeared in the dusty gravel just as Jasmine approached the main door, their delicate size betraying the twins' innocence in stark contrast to the deadly scenario unfolding. Each step made David's stomach knot tighter, each whispered word of reassurance she gave to the boys, slicing through his memories and regrets. The SUV's engine purred low, a subtle, menacing growl in the quiet night. David's eyes never left the screen as he considered every possibility: a random stalker, a rival gang, someone from his old life seeking revenge. But the precise movements of the vehicle told him one thing: this was deliberate. They had followed her, they knew she would return here, and they knew the twins were vulnerable. The realization brought a cold sweat to his forehead. He instinctively reached for his phone, fingers brushing over the numbers of his most trusted allies. But hesitation struck again. If he alerted anyone, it could tip off the hunters, and Jasmine didn't know he was alive, let alone watching. He cursed himself for leaving, for vanishing when she needed him most, and for missing the years his children had grown without him. Every regret sharpened the tension. Every memory of their love haunted him like a specter. As Jasmine's hand trembled on the doorknob, the SUV's shadow stretched across the yard, a silent threat looming behind her. David leaned in, barely breathing, as if the slightest sound might trigger catastrophe. He could see the fear in her eyes, the same fear he had felt countless times in his past life, and it ignited a protective fire deep within him. Every second stretched endlessly. Every choice he didn't make could be fatal. Then, just as he reached to manipulate another camera angle, the feed went dead. The monitors blinked black, leaving him in near darkness. His pulse roared in his ears, adrenaline and panic colliding violently. Someone had intentionally cut the cameras, and Jasmine was now completely exposed. He felt the icy grip of dread tighten around his heart. A sudden movement in the shadows outside the mansion made him lean closer, straining to see through the darkness beyond the cameras. The SUV had vanished, but where? His mind raced with scenarios. Had they gone to wait, to ambush, to attack? Each possibility was worse than the last. His chest ached with fear, but even more with anticipation of finally confronting the woman he had loved, the children he had never held. David's instinct screamed at him to move, but caution kept him rooted, analyzing, planning. He couldn't make a mistake, not when Jasmine and the twins were just steps away from danger he could see but not yet reach. The night air seemed heavier now, oppressive, suffocating, carrying the faint scent of wet leaves and something metallic that made his stomach churn. He clenched his jaw, knuckles white, and whispered to himself, "Not this time, not them." Each word was a vow, a promise, a warning. His mind raced through every possible plan, every hidden path, every old escape route he had designed when he was king of the underground. Every option felt both possible and impossible, the weight of years of regret pressing down like a boulder. The twins stirred, tiny hands brushing Jasmine's neck as she whispered soothing words. The sight made David's chest tighten. Again, a mix of longing, fear, and desperation. He had failed them once by leaving, and he would never forgive himself if anything happened tonight. Then, a faint metallic click echoed somewhere near the mansion's old stone walls. David's breath hitched. Someone or something was already here. He could feel it. The mansion was no longer just a memory. It was a battlefield waiting to erupt. Every instinct told him danger was closer than Jasmine realized. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every silence screamed with menace. He leaned closer, willing the monitors to flicker back to life, desperate to see her again, desperate to act before it was too late. But the screens stayed dead, a blank void mocking him. And in that void, the sound of his own heartbeat was deafening, punctuating the terror, hope, and urgency all at once. David's eyes narrowed. The mansion that had been empty for years was alive again, with fear, love, and danger intertwined. He knew one thing for certain. The moment he had dreaded for 3 years had arrived, and nothing, not distance, not absence, not fear, would stop him from confronting it. The night stretched endlessly, each second a knife edge of suspense. And somewhere beyond the cameras, Jasmine was stepping forward, unaware that her life and the lives of their children depended on every choice he would make in the next few minutes. Someone had disabled the cameras, the SUV had vanished, and David realized he had only seconds to act before shadows closed in. 2. David's boots struck the gravel with urgency, each step echoing through the empty courtyard like a drumbeat of anticipation. The night wind tangled with his coat, tugging at him as if urging him faster, carrying with it the faint scent of wet leaves and earth, the scent of the past he could never escape. His mind was a storm, replaying the image of Jasmine cradling the twins, her trembling lips whispering words he could not hear. He had left her once, thinking absence would protect her, but seeing her now, so close yet so vulnerable, made his blood run cold. Every step toward the mansion's grand entrance sharpened his senses. The black SUV had disappeared from the cameras, but the memory of its slow, deliberate approach gnawed at his gut. The covered plates, the professional movements. This wasn't random. Someone was hunting her, and David had no time to hesitate. He pushed open the heavy front doors, their hinges groaning in protest, and entered the grand hall. Dust motes floated in the air, illuminated by moonlight slicing through broken windows, turning the once majestic space into a ghostly arena of shadows and memory. Tiny footprints on the marble floor drew his attention immediately. David knelt briefly, tracing them with a careful eye. 4 small prints, neat and precise, a stark reminder of the children he had never held, never touched, never whispered to at night. His chest tightened as he imagined them, frightened yet trusting in the presence of the woman who had carried them all this time. He could almost hear their soft breathing, almost feel the weight of them pressed against Jasmine's arms. The thought both steadied and tormented him. A faint rustle from the west hall made him freeze mid-step. His eyes darted toward the dark corridor, every muscle in his body taut like a coiled spring. The rustle was accompanied by a tiny hiccup, a child's quiet, frightened breath breaking the heavy silence. David's instincts flared. He moved slowly, deliberately, silent on the polished floor as he approached the hallway, hand hovering near his side, where old reflexes had trained him to carry weapons. Every creak of the floor beneath him was a potential warning, every shadow a possible threat. The mansion's silence felt alive, almost malicious, wrapping around him like a living thing. Memories of past battles, both physical and emotional, flashed unbidden. Narrow escapes, gunfire echoing through corridors, and the ache of leaving Jasmine behind. He had vanished to protect her, yet the thought now twisted in his gut like a knife. Had his absence done more harm than good? And now she was here. Walking into the danger he had once tried to erase from her life, and carrying his sons in her arms. Suddenly, a metallic click resonated from the second floor. David's breath hitched, his body instinctively dropping into a crouch. Every nerve screamed that someone else was in the mansion. Not a random intruder, someone trained, someone dangerous, someone who knew these halls almost as well as he did. The click repeated, faint yet deliberate, like a warning shot fired without bullets. He scanned the room with a sharp eye, noting shadows shifting unnaturally, catching the faint glint of light reflecting off polished surfaces. His hand brushed over the banister as he ascended the grand staircase, each step deliberate, careful not to make a sound that might alert whoever was above. Tiny disturbances in the dust marked the path. A scuff here, a displaced chair there, traces of movement in a place long abandoned. Each sign of life, each sound, heightened the tension twisting in his chest. He felt both anticipation and dread. Anticipation at the thought of finally protecting his family, dread at the realization that danger was closer than he imagined. He paused at the landing, listening intently. Somewhere above, faint breathing echoed against the old plaster walls. Was it the intruder, or the faint, fearful breaths of the twins? His eyes scanned the darkened hallways, picking up shadows that didn't belong, movements too deliberate to be random. The mansion, once silent and empty, now pulsed with hidden threats, each corner hiding secrets, each echo suggesting the presence of someone watching, waiting, calculating. A sudden creak of a floorboard behind him spun him around. Hands snapping toward the grip of a hidden weapon he hadn't touched in years, but the space behind him was empty, just the long shadows stretching from the stair railing. He exhaled slowly, but the relief was fleeting. Every instinct screamed at him that this was only the beginning. Whoever had disabled the cameras was still here, moving silently, and the twins were still at risk. David crept down the west hall toward the faint sound of the child's hiccup. The soft, uneven rhythm of small breaths confirmed the presence of the boys. He crouched low, scanning the dim light, his mind racing through possibilities, escape routes, hiding spots, ways to protect them from whatever threat stalked them. The sound of small, quick footsteps made his pulse spike. Someone or something was close, and he couldn't afford a mistake. Suddenly, a cold glint flashed in the moonlight from a gun barrel that had appeared behind a shadow near the stairwell. David's heart leaped, reflexes firing instantly, his body twisted, hands snapping to the nearest object for cover, every sense honed by years of surviving in a world that demanded perfection and reaction a second before danger arrived. The intruder had been patient, waiting for the perfect moment, and David realized the mansion's silence had been a trap all along. He whispered a single word under his breath, a vow to himself and to the children he had never known. Not tonight. Every instinct screamed to move, but even movement had to be calculated. The gun barrel was steady, trained with precision, but David had no hesitation. He was the hunter now, and the stakes were higher than ever. Jasmine, the twins, and the shadows of his past converging in one deadly moment. Another metallic click echoed from above, faint but audible, against the tense silence. David's eyes flicked upward, catching a shadow flitting across the railing, a fleeting figure fast and deliberate, testing him, teasing him, forcing him to anticipate the next move. The mansion was alive now, every creak, every shadow, every whisper of wind a signal of danger. His chest tightened with each passing second, knowing that hesitation could cost them all. He edged closer to the room where the footprints had begun, careful not to disturb the dust, careful not to trigger any trap. His eyes caught movement, a curtain fluttering without wind, the hint of someone retreating into the darkness. The intruder was aware he had arrived, aware that the family's protection was in the hands of the man who had once commanded fear across continents. David's fingers brushed a weapon at his hip, steadying his aim, steadying his resolve. Each heartbeat hammered in his ears. The children's soft breaths, Jasmine's protective whispers, the faint rustle of the mansion itself, all collided into a tension that wrapped around him like fire. He was determined, calculating, ready to strike the moment the threat fully revealed itself. He froze mid-step. A shadow moved along the hallway wall, unnaturally smooth, deliberate, a predator, tracking prey. The glint of a gun barrel flashed again, catching moonlight in a heartbeat. David's mind raced. This was no ordinary thief, no simple intruder. This was a professional, someone who had studied the mansion, someone who understood fear as well as he did. He took a deep breath, grounding himself, every sense alert. The mansion that had once been empty and silent was now a cage, alive with danger, echoing with the past and threatening the future. David knew he had only seconds to act before the intruder made their move. A faint metallic click reverberated again, closer this time, echoing off the walls, a sinister prelude to action. The twins hiccuped softly. Jasmine whispered words he couldn't hear, and the mansion's shadows seemed to grow longer, darker, as if aware of the approaching storm. A shadow moved behind him, the cold glint of a gun barrel reflecting the moonlight. David knew in that instant that the past he had tried to bury had returned to claim everything he loved. 3. Jasmine pressed herself against the cold wall of the foyer, holding the twins tightly against her chest. Their small bodies quivered, and their soft breathing tickled her earlobes, fragile and innocent. Every instinct in her screamed at her to hide, to run, to vanish into the shadows, but the weight of the children kept her rooted. Her heart pounded violently, each beat loud enough to drown the slightest sound she might make. She could almost hear her own pulse echoing in the empty, eerie halls of the mansion. She had chosen this place carefully. Of all the streets and neighborhoods she could have sought refuge in, this mansion, the one David had abandoned years ago, was the only location she believed would remain untouched by the hunters she had eluded for so long. The sprawling estate, long dormant and cloaked in silence, had been designed for defense, yet even now the walls seemed to watch her, unyielding and cold. She reminded herself to breathe, whispering soft, rhythmic words to calm the twins, but her own trembling betrayed her courage. The sudden silence of the mansion was almost suffocating. Every creak, every whisper of wind through the broken windows was amplified in her ears. Jasmine's mind raced, remembering the stories David had once told her about the mansion's hidden passages and secret exits, every word a testament to his meticulous caution. She knew he had built this place for safety, but even his planning couldn't shield her from the unknown danger lurking in the shadows tonight. The cameras had cut out moments ago, leaving her blind. The absence of their watchful electronic eyes intensified her paranoia. She strained to hear over the rapid thud of her heart, listening intently for any hint of movement, breaths, footsteps, the faintest shift of a shadow. Each sound made her flinch. She reminded herself that the twins depended on her courage now, yet fear pressed against her chest like a living thing, suffocating and sharp. Then faint footsteps echoed from the second floor. Her stomach dropped. Cold as ice. Whoever was up there wasn't moving randomly. The steps were measured, careful, predatory. She pressed the twins closer, whispering reassurances she barely felt herself. The boys hiccuped softly, frightened, and she murmured, "Shh, it's okay. Mama's right here, stay with me." Her voice cracked, but the words were enough to give them a flicker of comfort, even as her own terror gnawed at her mind. Jasmine's thoughts drifted briefly to David, how she had hated him for leaving, for vanishing without explanation, and yet, beneath the anger, a bitter truth lingered. The danger stalking her now was tied to his past, not hers. Her pulse quickened as she imagined him, somewhere in the mansion, sensing the threat, calculating his every move to protect them. The realization was both comforting and terrifying. He was the only man who could face the storm closing in on them, but his presence could not yet reach her. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped. The silence was heavier than before, oppressive in its intensity. Jasmine's breath hitched. She held her hand over the twins' mouths, listening with every fiber of her being. Then, a whisper, soft and low, drifted down from the staircase. Jasmine. The name was familiar, impossibly intimate, the sound striking her like a physical blow. It was David's voice, the voice she had loved, lost, and never stopped longing for. Her throat tightened, tears welling as she struggled to respond, to find words. Before she could answer, a sharp crash erupted from the foyer behind her. The sound tore through the silence, shattering her fragile sense of security. The twins screamed, their terrified voices echoing off the marble walls. Jasmine instinctively pressed them harder against her chest, shielding them as her own panic surged. Her eyes darted toward the front doors, just as they splintered under forceful impact. Someone was kicking them open, forcing their way inside. Adrenaline surged through her, heightening every sense. She could hear heavy, calculated footsteps, the snap of fabric, the faint metallic click of weapons being readied. Whoever had invaded the mansion moved with lethal precision. She knew instinctively that these were not amateurs. This was calculated, professional, and dangerous. She could feel their eyes on her, piercing through the shadows, aware of her every move. The twins whimpered softly, and Jasmine murmured desperate words. "Mama's here. I won't let them take you." Her fingers brushed the back of their tiny heads, her nails digging into their soft hair as she tried to ground herself against the rising panic. She could almost feel the presence of David nearby, sensing him as a phantom, imagining him moving through the mansion, hunting threats like a predator closing in on prey. The front doors crashed again, sending shards of wood scattering across the marble floor. The intruder's presence was undeniable now. Their heavy boots, the muffled grunts, the sharp snapping of weaponry. They were inside, and every second brought them closer. Jasmine's mind raced, calculating escape routes, hidden corridors, secret stairways David had once told her about. But every option seemed fraught with danger, every shadow a potential threat to the children in her arms. A floorboard creaked above her, and she froze. The footsteps weren't random. Someone was moving methodically across the upper floor, scanning, searching, anticipating. Jasmine pressed herself further into the corner, trying to make herself invisible, wishing the mansion's shadows could swallow her whole. The twins shivered in her arms, tiny hands clutching her clothing, as if sensing the peril she felt in every bone. She whispered soft words to keep them calm, her own voice quivering with fear and determination. "Stay close to Mama. Don't move. Breathe." Her eyes scanned the room, noting shadows shifting unnaturally, fleeting movements near the edges of her vision. Every creak, every breath of wind, every reflection of moonlight on the broken windows seemed amplified, carrying a threat she could not yet see but could feel. The sound of footsteps descending the staircase made her stiffen. 1, 2, deliberate, confident. Whoever approached was testing her, forcing her to reveal herself. Jasmine's heart pounded in sync with the twins' terrified breathing. She whispered, "Please, just let us be. Please." Her voice cracked, but it carried into the shadows, unheeded by the intruder. A faint metallic click echoed somewhere behind a pillar. Jasmine flinched, dragging the twins closer. The sound was precise, deliberate, a weapon being readied, a signal that the hunters were closing in. Her stomach churned as she realized the mansion was no longer a place of refuge. It had become a trap, a battleground, and the intruders were aware of her presence. The moonlight shifted through the broken windows, illuminating a figure moving quickly across the foyer. Jasmine's breath caught. Her mind raced through every possibility. Could she escape through the hidden doors David had once mentioned? Was there a safe corridor leading out? But even as she calculated, the intruder's movements were fluid, professional, almost anticipatory of her every action. The twins whimpered again, and her arms tightened around them. She whispered desperate encouragement, brushing their hair from their faces. "Mama's right here. Don't be scared. I won't let anything happen." But even as she spoke, the front doors gave way completely, splintering under the force, revealing shadows advancing into the room. A surge of protective fury coursed through her veins. Jasmine stepped back instinctively, dragging the twins with her, scanning for the nearest cover, the nearest hiding place. Her mind worked frantically, searching for the mansion's secret passages. the stairways hidden behind walls, anything that could shield them. Every movement had to be precise, every breath controlled, or the danger would strike. The intruders advanced, boots scraping across the marble, weapons glinting faintly in the moonlight. Jasmine froze, her heart threatening to burst, yet something deep inside whispered not to give up, not to falter, not to let fear win. Her arms tightened, her fingers gripping the twins, her teeth biting into her lip to stifle a scream. Then, a shadow flickered across the foyer, sudden, deliberate, fast. Someone had moved ahead of her, taking position, testing the room, setting the stage for what was coming next. Jasmine's pulse leapt violently. She could almost hear the predator's thoughts, their anticipation of the fear radiating from her, the tiny, helpless forms of her children. Her breath came fast and shallow as she tried to keep herself small, invisible, and ready. Every second stretched like an eternity. The mansion's silence was broken only by the distant shuffle of intruders and the frightened breaths of the twins. She could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her, but she refused to falter. A sudden crash echoed as the intruders kicked another barrier, a loud, jarring sound that sent a tremor through the mansion and made the twins scream in terror. Jasmine held them tighter, rocking slightly, whispering, "It's okay. It's okay. Mama's here." Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them see her fear. Then, above the din, a familiar, commanding presence whispered from the shadows, barely audible but unmistakable. "Jasmine." Her body froze. Her breath caught. The voice, only one man could speak her name with such weight, such power, such intimacy. It was David. Before she could respond, the intruders closed the distance. Their heavy boots pounded against the marble, and the glint of weapons reflected in the shattered glass. Jasmine's eyes widened, fear and hope clashing violently in her chest. The twins screamed as the front doors were kicked open, the intruders flooding the foyer, and Jasmine realized she had only seconds to protect them before chaos erupted. David moved like a shadow himself, pressing close to the walls of the mansion, his every step silent but charged with lethal intent. The air smelled of dust and fear, mingling with the faint metallic scent of blood he imagined from the past. The intruders had already flooded the foyer, boots pounding, weapons glinting in the fragmented moonlight that streamed through broken windows. Every instinct in David screamed that this was no ordinary assault. It was precise, professional, and most terrifyingly, personal. He watched them closely, recognizing the insignia emblazoned on their tactical vests. A cold knot formed in his stomach. These were no hired guns, no random criminals. They were a specialized extraction unit, elite and trained to kill. And then realization struck like a hammer. This was Marcus's doing. His older cousin, the same man obsessed with controlling the Miller bloodline, the man who had spent years plotting, manipulating, and waiting for David to falter. David's jaw tightened, teeth gritting. Marcus had discovered Jasmine and the twins. He could feel the icy surge of dread in his veins. Marcus wasn't coming for them just to reclaim territory or for vengeance. He was coming for blood, for heirs, for the Miller lineage David had rejected and turned his back on. The realization burned in him, mingling with fear and fury, a volatile cocktail that sharpened his reflexes and made every movement instinctual. David clenched his fists, feeling the weight of responsibility he had once tried to escape, now crushing him with relentless force. Bullets cracked through the marble halls, splintering wood and shattering glass, sending echoes ricocheting through the cavernous mansion. The twins screamed, panic rising in their tiny voices, and David's heart stuttered in tandem with their cries. He lunged forward, grabbing Jasmine's hand with a grip that conveyed every unspoken emotion: love, desperation, regret, and protection. The twins clung instinctively to his legs, their small bodies vibrating against him, seeking the safety only he could provide. Jasmine's eyes met his for the first time in years. In that glance, she saw the same fierce, unwavering love she had once trusted completely. Her anger, the bitterness she had carried, mixed with relief and hope, all colliding in the intensity of the moment. But before she could ask a single question, before words could form, Marcus's voice cut through the chaos like ice. The speakers crackled, booming across the mansion's halls, cold and unrelenting. "David Miller," Marcus intoned, venom lacing every syllable, "a coward who abandoned his own sons." The words hit David like a physical blow, twisting his gut with a mixture of shame, fury, and determination. The intruders pressed forward, tactical precision driving them, every movement rehearsed and deadly. David's mind raced. How to protect Jasmine, how to shield the twins, how to survive long enough to confront the man who had made this night hell. He felt Jasmine's hand tighten in his, small and trembling, yet filled with trust. The twins clung to him, innocent. Unknowing of the gravity of the battle about to unfold, he inhaled sharply, the metallic tang of gunfire mixing with the fear and adrenaline coursing through his veins. Marcus's men moved in coordinated sweeps, searching the mansion, clearing rooms with methodical efficiency. Each room they breached, each corner they turned, made the mansion feel smaller, tighter, more claustrophobic, and David knew he had to act fast. He darted through the shadows, following a path he had memorized years ago, the hidden corridors, secret staircases, and panic tunnels he had once constructed for situations exactly like this. Every step was calculated, measured, silent. He moved past shattered furniture, broken chandeliers, and debris from the earlier forced entry. He felt the weight of the twins against him, felt Jasmine's trust in his hands, and the combination steeled his nerves and sharpened his focus. A sudden noise, a chair toppling in the hall, made him freeze. He pressed Jasmine and the twins against the wall, sliding low to the floor as the intruders passed moments later, scanning the room with tactical precision. One of Marcus's men paused, ears attuned, rifle raised, every inch a predator. David's pulse raced, but he remained still, watching, calculating, waiting for the perfect moment to act. The twins whimpered softly. Jasmine whispered reassurances, her voice quivering yet firm, brushing hair from their faces. David could feel her fear as if it were his own, intertwining with his own adrenaline-fueled focus. He took a slow breath, steeling himself. Every second that passed, Marcus's plan advanced, the extraction unit tightening the net around them, methodically hunting the family he had abandoned once before. Then, Marcus's voice rang again, clearer this time, closer. "You think you can hide them, David? They belong to me, and I will take them, by force or death." The words were venomous, deliberate, designed to break him emotionally, even as they forced tactical urgency. David's teeth clenched. Rage flared sharp and white-hot, fueling his every thought and every movement. He would not let Marcus take them, not this time. David's mind raced, calculating escape routes, anticipating Marcus's next moves. He edged down a narrow corridor, taking advantage of shadows, using the debris and broken walls as cover. Every movement had to be precise, because one wrong step, 1 second of hesitation, and Marcus's men would close in. The mansion's walls seemed alive now. Every echo, every reflected light, every creak, a signal of the hunters closing in. Suddenly, a faint metallic click echoed behind him. David pivoted, catching the subtle glint of a rifle barrel aimed for him. Reflexes honed by years of survival kicked in. He dropped low, rolling behind a shattered pillar, pulling Jasmine and the twins close. Their frightened breaths collided with his own, but the danger had grown exponentially closer. Whoever had followed them was now dangerously near. A loud crash resounded from the foyer. Another barrier shattered, a splintering sound that reverberated through the walls. The intruders were advancing, moving with the precision of predators. David's mind raced. He needed to protect the twins, keep them calm, and confront Marcus. But each decision came with a knife-edge risk, the margin between survival and catastrophe impossibly thin. He whispered to Jasmine, barely audible, "Stay behind me. Don't move. Trust me." She nodded, fear etched in her eyes, yet a flicker of faith glimmered in the chaos. The twins' small hands clutched his arms, tiny fingers digging into his jacket as he scanned the room, calculating the next move. A shadow moved along the stairwell above. David's pulse spiked. The intruders were coordinating, testing, probing, pushing them toward a confrontation. He could almost see Marcus in the chaos, watching, controlling, orchestrating every moment with ruthless precision. Another metallic click sounded, this one closer. A weapon was being aimed at him from the left corridor. David reacted instantly, diving to the side, pulling Jasmine and the twins with him, narrowly avoiding the sudden flash of muzzle fire. Sparks flew off a metal beam as the bullet struck. David's mind worked at lightning speed, moving through scenarios, escape routes, confrontation points. He had to reach Marcus, neutralize him, and protect Jasmine and the children, all while evading the lethal team sweeping the mansion. Every shadow, every echo, every glint of metal was a signal, a threat, and he could not afford to miss a single detail. The mansion's ceilings groaned, the broken chandeliers swinging, debris scattered from earlier chaos shifting under unseen weight. The intruders were everywhere at once, yet David's training, his instincts, and the desperation fueled by love guided him. He slipped through the shadows, ducked behind walls, narrowly avoided detection multiple times, and edged closer to where he knew Marcus would be. Then Marcus's voice cut through again, this time closer, sharper. "David, you cannot stop me. Hand over the boys or they die first." The words froze him for a fraction of a second, just enough for every hair on his body to stand on end. Rage, fear, and determination collided inside him, fueling the deadly calm he needed to act. David's gaze swept the room, noting weak points in the intruder's formation, calculating every angle, every potential line of fire. He felt the weight of Jasmine's grip, the small bodies of the twins pressed against him, and it steeled his resolve. This night was no longer about past mistakes. It was about survival, protection, and reclaiming what was rightfully his family. Marcus announced he would take the twins by force or death, and David realized the battle for their lives had officially begun. Every shadow a threat, every second a gamble with fate. 5. David's boots barely made a sound as he guided Jasmine and the twins through the shattered foyer, ducking beneath splintered beams and navigating around debris from the intruder's earlier assault. Every sense was on high alert. Shadows danced violently along the walls, thrown by the occasional flicker of lightning outside. And David's instincts told him they had only seconds to reach safety before Marcus's men discovered their exact location. The hidden panic tunnel had been built years ago, a secret lifeline beneath the mansion meant for moments exactly like this. David pushed the disguised entrance open, dust and mildew rising as the tunnel yawned before them. It smelled faintly of damp earth and old stone, a scent David had grown accustomed to in years past when he had trained for scenarios that no one but him knew existed. Now it would serve as a lifeline, a shield for the family he had abandoned once and vowed never to lose again. Jasmine's hands trembled violently, her fingers gripping the twins' small bodies as though holding them closer could make the danger disappear. "David, all of this," she whispered, her voice barely audible, trembling as she tried to keep her voice calm for the children's sake. "Your world, it's darker than I ever imagined. I didn't know. I didn't understand." Tears welled in her eyes as the weight of reality pressed down on her. The mansion that had once seemed like a refuge now loomed as a tomb, each echo of distant footsteps a reminder that death was only moments away. David lowered his head, his eyes dark and unwavering as he explained what she needed to hear. Marcus believes the Miller bloodline must remain pure, intact, strong. He doesn't care about the boys as children. They're targets, Jasmine. He's taking them as heirs to the empire I walked away from. The words cut through the already thick tension, slicing into the room like a blade. Jasmine's chest heaved as she absorbed the horrifying truth. The man she had loved, the father of her children, had been living in a shadowy world she had barely glimpsed until now. Her face contorted in anger and pain. "You left me. You didn't trust me. You made me face all of this alone while you protected your pride." Her voice cracked, carrying the raw hurt she had buried for 3 long years. The twins stirred at her raised voice, and David lowered his tone, softening, letting his remorse seep through. "I never stopped protecting you. I thought leaving was the only way to keep you safe," he murmured. The argument escalated, voices tense and sharp, cutting through the tunnel's darkness. Then a tiny, trembling voice broke through the heated exchange. "Mama, scared." Both David and Jasmine froze, guilt and urgency crashing down like a tidal wave. The twins' innocence, their vulnerability, reminded them of what was at stake. Jasmine's tears fell freely as she whispered reassurances, her hands caressing the small heads. "It's okay. Mama's right here. Nothing will touch you." David reached down, lifting the boys carefully, their small limbs wrapped around his torso as though trying to merge with him, seeking protection and warmth. He felt the weight of them, fragile and precious, and it steeled his resolve. Every fear, every regret, every ounce of anger he carried transformed into focus. He would protect them, no matter the cost. As they moved deeper into the tunnel, the sound of pursuit pressed against their backs, a rhythmic, deliberate pounding that resonated through the mansion's floors. David's pulse spiked. Marcus's men were close, too close. He glanced behind, glimpsing shadows flit across the entrance. A cold realization struck him. Marcus had found the tunnel entrance. Then came the heavy thud overhead, echoing like doom. A live grenade dropped, thudding onto the stone just steps behind them. David's eyes widened as adrenaline surged violently. His body reacted before thought, sweeping the twins up against his chest and shielding them with his own frame. The faint hiss of the pin echoed in his mind as he caught the grenade rolling slowly toward the children. Jasmine screamed, clutching David's arm, trembling violently. "David! The boys!" Her voice was raw with terror, a sound that shattered the walls around them. David pivoted instinctively, kicking the grenade behind him and into a narrow alcove designed for such emergencies. Sparks of light danced along the tunnel walls as the grenade bounced, rolling dangerously close to the twins. The confined tunnel magnified the sound of the grenade's landing. Dust and stone vibrated under its weight, and David's mind raced. He had to move fast, to shield, to protect. His eyes darted down the tunnel, scanning for safe cover. For every inch of possible protection the structure offered. The twins whimpered softly, small hands clutching at his jacket. Jasmine's sobs punctuated the tension, a rhythm of despair he could not ignore. Suddenly, a faint click, metal against metal, echoed in the tunnel. David's eyes snapped toward it. Was Marcus sending another device or a sniper's setup above? Every movement, every sound became a potential threat. The air seemed to thicken, pressing against his lungs, each breath a battle against panic. David crouched low, adjusting his hold on the twins. "Stay close and don't move," he whispered, voice firm, resonating with authority born from desperation and training. Jasmine nodded, shivering, wrapping her arms around him as he led them further into the tunnel's narrow passages. The walls pressed in, dust cascading from above, as if the mansion itself was aware of the approaching danger. Another metallic thud reverberated above. A second grenade. He froze mid-step. The mansion's silence returned briefly, heavy and suffocating, only to be shattered by the sharp sound of boots running across the hall above. Marcus was not just hunting them. He was orchestrating an assault from every angle, relentless and merciless. David's mind worked frantically, calculating paths, angles, and the sequence of events necessary to survive. Every inch mattered. Every step could determine whether the twins lived or died. Jasmine clutched at him, voice trembling. "David, what do we do?" Her eyes searched his, filled with fear, trust, and an unspoken plea for a miracle. He whispered firmly, "We survive. Together. Nothing else matters. I promise." The twins hiccuped softly, clinging to him, and he adjusted his grip, shielding them with his arms and chest. Each step deeper into the tunnel brought them closer to temporary safety, but the threat loomed ever larger above. A faint metallic scrape sounded from the ceiling. Marcus's hands? A tool? Another attempt to breach the tunnel. David's heart thumped violently. He pressed back against the wall, careful to minimize sound, careful to ensure the twins' small bodies stayed completely protected. The confined space magnified every noise, every echo, every tremor of the mansion around them. The twins whimpered again, small voices barely audible over the tension. David muttered soft words to calm them, his lips brushing their hair, whispering, "It's okay. Dada's here. Nothing can touch you." Jasmine mirrored him, her hands trembling as she stroked their tiny arms. The contrast between their terror and his calculated focus sharpened his resolve, feeding the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Another heavy thud echoed overhead. David pivoted instinctively, throwing himself against the wall to shield the family. The grenade that Marcus had dropped earlier rolled perilously close. Every second stretched impossibly long, every heartbeat a countdown. The mansion seemed to close in around them, shadows looming, dust falling, and the faint echo of Marcus's voice threatening, almost mocking from above. David's hand swept to the grenade, gripping it with a determined force and kicking it into a corner lined with reinforced stone. A measure he had once installed for emergencies like this. The echo of impact reverberated throughout the tunnel. Dust swirled, tiny stones rattling, and the twins whimpered, but David held them tightly, shielding them further with his own body. Jasmine's tears fell freely now, hot and wet against his shoulder. I can't lose them. Not now," she whispered, voice breaking. David's eyes burned with fury, his jaw clenched, and he whispered back, voice low and steady, "You won't. I swear on my life. You won't." Another thump above. A step? A hand? The faint sound of movement told him Marcus was not done, that the assault was relentless. David's mind raced, searching for every escape route, every safety measure, every defensive move. The mansion, once a symbol of legacy, had become a battlefield, and he was determined to ensure the twins survived at any cost. The grenade rolled toward the twins, their small bodies trembling in David's protective arms, and Marcus's relentless assault showed no sign of stopping, each second a razor edge of life and death. Instinct ignited in David like a storm. The moment the grenade bounced perilously close to the twins, his body reacted before his mind could even comprehend the danger. He lunged forward, chest flattening against the small forms of the boys, arms wrapping around them like iron, shielding their fragile bodies from the deadly blast. The tunnel shook violently as the grenade detonated, the shockwave rattling stone walls, dust, and debris, filling the narrow passage. Smoke billowed in choking clouds, stinging eyes and filling every crevice with the acrid tang of gunpowder. David coughed violently, lungs burning, vision blurred. But he clung to the twins and Jasmine with a ferocity born of desperation. He could feel their tiny hearts hammering against his chest, and it drove a sharp, burning determination into his veins. Nothing would take them from him, not Marcus, not the world, not fate itself. Through the dense haze, David moved, instincts guiding every step. The reinforced walls of the tunnel absorbed much of the blast, saving the family, but the danger was far from over. He stumbled slightly, coughing, and felt Jasmine's arms cling to his side. Her sobs were quiet but piercing, small tremors of terror running through her body as she held the twins tightly. "David? Oh God, David!" she gasped, fear and relief mingling in her voice. I thought we were done." David's lips brushed her forehead in a fleeting kiss, impulsive and desperate. The familiar weight of memory, the love they had lost, the years of longing, the ache of regret, pressed against his chest in a way that nearly made him collapse beneath it. Jasmine didn't pull away. She held him closer, the twins' small hands curling around their mother's neck. The tunnel's back exit loomed ahead, faint moonlight filtering through the forest outside. David pushed forward, stumbling slightly over debris, his arms shielding the children as they emerged into the open night. The cool air hit them like a relief, though only fleeting. Every shadow beyond the tunnel mouth was a potential threat, every rustle of leaves a warning. Jasmine's eyes darted across the forest, wild with fear and confusion. Where do we go?" she whispered, voice trembling. David's jaw clenched as he scanned the trees, every rustling leaf amplified by adrenaline. "We keep moving, don't stop, stay low, stay close," he murmured, holding them tight as he led them through the underbrush. Then the sharp gleam of red light sliced through the shadows, the unmistakable laser sights of a high-powered rifle. Marcus. He wasn't hidden. He was waiting, calculating, confident. His intent was clear. He didn't want David dead. He wanted Jasmine removed from the equation entirely, seeing her as a weakness, a threat to the Miller bloodline. David froze for a fraction of a second, assessing distance, cover, angles, every strategic possibility. Rage surged like wildfire. Every ounce of fear, regret, and helplessness from years past ignited in a white-hot fury. David stepped forward instinctively, daring Marcus to fire, daring him to make a move. He was no longer the man who had fled. He was the man who would kill to protect his family, and he would not hesitate. Marcus's voice rang out, low, controlled, deadly. "Step forward, David, and watch her die first." The words were like ice laced with fire, cutting into David's chest, feeding the growing inferno of fury inside him. He could feel the twins squirming, small, fragile bodies pressing into him, their terror a sharp, tangible reminder of what was at stake. David pivoted slightly, positioning himself between Marcus and the family, the forest shadows stretching around him, every muscle tensed, ready to react. Leaves crunched underfoot, the scent of damp earth mixing with gunpowder and fear. He scanned for obstacles, for anything he could use as cover, for ways to disrupt Marcus's aim. A sudden snapping of a branch made him flinch. One of Marcus's men, or perhaps Marcus himself, was moving silently, strategically, seeking the perfect shot. David shifted, dragging Jasmine and the twins behind a gnarled tree trunk, the moonlight barely illuminating the danger around them. Each second felt like a lifetime, each breath a gamble with fate. Jasmine pressed herself against him, trembling violently, whispering, "David, I can't, Her voice broke, small hands gripping his arm, anchoring herself and the twins to his strength. David whispered back, firm, steady, lethal. "You're safe. Not a scratch. Not a step closer, unless I say so." Then came a sound that froze David's blood, a faint click, metallic, deliberate, followed by the soft hiss of a sniper preparing. Marcus's aim had adjusted, laser sights tracking a path straight to Jasmine. Every instinct screamed danger, every second screaming urgency. David's mind raced. Angles, distances, trajectories. He shifted slightly, moving the family, rotating behind the trunk for cover. The twins whimpered softly, their tiny voices shaking with fear. But David could feel the weight of his rage and purpose, focusing him like a sharpened blade. He would not allow Marcus to take another step. Not tonight, not ever. A rustle to the right, a small figure slipping through the shadows. Another sniper. Another trap. David reacted instantly, moving the family deeper behind a thick cluster of underbrush, branches scratching across his jacket, small cuts opening on his hands and arms. He didn't notice. His focus was singular. Protect, survive, strike. A sudden gunshot rang out. It echoed through the forest, a single sharp note slicing the night. Jasmine screamed, the twins crying out in terror. David's eyes widened, instincts kicking in before thought, but the source of the shot was unclear. Marcus? One of his men? Or someone else entirely? The uncertainty heightened every heartbeat, every nerve, every sense. The forest seemed alive with danger. Every shadow moved, every rustle suggested an ambush. David adjusted his stance, feeling for every vibration in the earth, every flicker of moonlight that might betray a sniper's location. The twins pressed against him, small bodies trembling, and Jasmine clutched his arm, holding on as though their survival depended solely on his every decision. Marcus's cold laughter rang through the trees, a sound that carried threat and derision. "You think you can hide? You think you can protect them?" His voice was everywhere and nowhere, amplified by the open forest, taunting, confident. David's eyes narrowed, his mind calculated, refined, and focused. He would counter. He would strike. He would not allow Marcus to claim even a fraction of his family. His entire body coiled, ready to spring, every muscle tensed, every instinct honed. A sudden movement, shadows flickering between trees, signaled another threat. David pivoted again, dragging Jasmine and the twins with him, crouching low, shifting positions to stay behind cover. The laser sights from Marcus danced along their hiding place, a deadly warning. Jasmine's voice trembled. "David, I can't." Her sobs were raw, her fear palpable. David whispered urgently, "Shh, it's okay. Stay behind me, trust me. Trust me." He felt the twins' small hands clutching his shirt, their fear tangible, and it fueled his determination. Another gunshot cracked through the night. David's head snapped toward the source, but no movement, no figure, only the echo of chaos. The uncertainty, the unknown, drove adrenaline into his veins. His grip on the twins tightened. He positioned himself fully between Marcus and the family, ready to face whatever came. A gunshot rang out, but no one knew who fired. David froze, muscles taut, eyes scanning every shadow, every branch, every glimmer of moonlight, knowing one wrong move could cost them everything. 7. The forest held its breath as the final confrontation erupted. David moved with precision, every muscle coiled, every sense sharpened by years of instinct and a desperate need to protect. Marcus's red laser sight hovered on Jasmine, unwavering, a cold threat that could end the family in an instant. David's hands tightened around his weapon, fingers steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He could hear the twins' soft whimpers through Jasmine's trembling embrace, small bodies pressed against her chest. David's eyes met hers, a silent promise passing between them. He would not let them die tonight. His heart surged, fury mixing with desperation, love, and years of regret. The world narrowed to one point, the man who had once been family and now stood as the greatest threat. Time slowed. David's gaze tracked Marcus's every movement, anticipating the angle of fire, the timing, the lethal precision he had come to fear over a lifetime. In a heartbeat, David acted. A single sharp movement, a calculated shot fired before Marcus could react. The bullet struck true, sending Marcus crashing violently to the forest floor. The crimson stains spread, a vivid testament to the finality of David's choice. Jasmine screamed, a mixture of relief and terror, shielding the twins instinctively. "David!" she cried, voice shaking, tears flowing freely as she clutched the children closer. The twins pressed against her, small hands trembling as they peeked from her protective embrace. David dropped the weapon, breathing heavily, every sense alive, watching Marcus writhe, bleeding but alive. Disbelief etched across his features. Marcus's eyes widened as he realized David hadn't just survived. He had chosen love. He had chosen family over the empire, over power, over bloodline obsession. Rage and shock warred in his expression, his plans collapsing in the moonlit forest. David's chest heaved as he kept a steady gaze on him, warning unspoken yet crystal clear. Any move now and Marcus would not survive another second. The sound of distant sirens pierced the night air, the approaching law enforcement slicing through the tension with the promise of safety. Jasmine trembled in David's arms, overwhelmed by a torrent of emotions: relief, fear, love, and the long-awaited security that he had returned for them. She clutched the twins, her heart pounding, still shaking, as the enormity of the night's events crashed upon her. David brushed hair from her face, his thumb gently tracing the line of her cheek, grounding her in a fleeting moment of peace amidst chaos. "I told you, I will face every consequence," he whispered, voice firm yet tender. "As long as you and the boys have a life free from violence, safe, together." The words hung between them, heavy with promise and truth. Tears streaked Jasmine's cheeks as she looked down at the twins, their tiny hands reaching out instinctively toward David. "Dada," they whispered, calling him for the first time. The sound was almost holy in its innocence, a balm to the wounds inflicted by years of separation and danger. David's chest tightened, emotion threatening to break him, and he lowered himself to their level, embracing them fully. The forest seemed to breathe with them, shadows retreating as if granting a momentary reprieve. David held the twins, whispering words of reassurance, stroking their hair, letting them feel safety and warmth for the first time in years. Jasmine watched, heart softened, as she realized the man she loved had transformed. He was no longer the feared Mafia heir, no longer a symbol of power and danger. He was simply a father, desperate to protect his family, ready to fight for them against the world itself. The sirens grew louder, blue and red lights flashing through the trees as law enforcement arrived, responding to the chaos that had unfolded. Marcus, bound and bloodied, struggled weakly, disbelief etched in every line of his face. The empire he had worshipped, the control he had obsessed over, had crumbled at David's hands. David turned to Jasmine fully, wiping a tear from her cheek, his voice low and steady. "We can finally live without fear, without running. Just us." Jasmine's lips trembled, her eyes searching his, seeing the sincerity, the love, the promise of safety and devotion. Slowly, she reached out, touching his cheek, tracing the lines that had been hardened by years of pain, by battles fought, by love lost and regained. "David." "I can't believe it," she whispered, voice breaking but tender. You came back. You didn't leave us." "Not this time." David's lips found hers in a tender, lingering kiss, the weight of years of longing and regret melting into the night air. The twins clutched both of them, small arms around their parents, warmth and trust radiating through the fragile family unit. For the first time, they were truly together, united against the world, against every threat, against every past mistake. Police officers moved through the forest cautiously, securing Marcus and the remaining intruders, while David stayed alert, weapon ready, eyes scanning the shadows. Despite the temporary safety, he knew the world wasn't entirely free from danger. But at this moment, the family mattered most. Jasmine leaned against his chest, inhaling his scent, feeling the solidity of his presence, the protection he provided. I love you," she murmured softly, voice carrying years of pain and reconciliation. David kissed her forehead, holding her close. "I've always loved you. Always. Nothing has changed." The twins reached up, their tiny hands brushing David's face, calling him Dada again, each repetition a heartbeat of normalcy, of family, of life reclaimed from chaos. The night around them seemed to soften, the forest quieting in acknowledgement of the reunion, the love that had survived the storm. As Marcus was loaded into police vehicles, screaming and protesting, David stepped back, lowering his weapon fully. He turned to Jasmine, a slow, heartfelt smile crossing his face. "Give me one last chance to love you, all of you, the right way," he whispered, eyes searching hers for the final consent of trust and hope. Jasmine lifted her face toward him, heart pounding, tears shimmering in her eyes, relief, love, and the promise of safety combined in the glance she gave him. But the moment shattered suddenly as a shadow moved behind the trees, silent and deliberate. A cold voice whispered, cutting through the calm night, "You're not safe yet." David's grip tightened on his weapon. The twins huddled closer. Jasmine's eyes widened, the fragile hope of the moment mixing with renewed tension. But David's jaw set, resolve burning brighter than ever. "No one will touch my family," he murmured, voice lethal, unyielding. The forest seemed to hold its breath once more, the final battle for peace lingering on the edge. But the unity of the family, their bond, and David's unwavering protection were stronger than any threat. The night stretched on, alive with tension, but for the first time in years, David, Jasmine, and the twins faced it together, unbroken, resilient, and reborn. Thank you for staying with me till the end of this emotional journey. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Heartwoven Tales, and press the bell icon. It truly supports the channel and helps us create more stories for you. Tell me in the comments, which moment moved you the most? Your words mean the world to me. Until next time, stay safe, stay kind, and stay connected with Heartwoven Tales.